Hello and welcome to another Mr. Carter Science Special. In this video we'll be looking at the uses of genetically engineered organisms. So in my previous video on this topic we've referred to transgenic or recombinant organisms that contain the DNA from two different species. These can also be referred to as a GMO. Organisms that have had their genes modified by genetic engineering are known as genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. Many GMOs are crop plants like wheat. Crops have been genetically modified to be resistant to attacks by insects by producing their own pesticides. Crops have been genetically modified to be resistant to herbicides so that farmers can use the herbicides to destroy competing plants and weeds without harming the crop plants, because the weeds will compete with the crop plants for nutrients, space, sunlight, etc. So if we can get rid of those crop plants, we will be able to weed plants, will be able to increase the yield of the crop plants. So as I say down here, this helps the farmers to grow more crops and increase the yield. This increases profits and produces more food for the growing human population. So how else can we increase the yield? Well, genetic engineering has been used to increase the yield in other ways. For example, potatoes have been genetically modified to produce more starch and to be resistant to pests. Soybeans have been modified to produce a healthier balance of fatty acids. And some GM crops which are resistant to common pathogens like the mosaic viruses and blights are being produced, all of which should help to increase the yield and again help us to feed our ever-increasing human population on this planet. Genetic engineering has also been used in other ways. For example, some genetically modified grasses can absorb and break down toxic explosive residues. These are chemicals that have been left in the soil after explosions. We have here an example of a danger mine sign from Cambodia in Southeast Asia, which still, even after their bloody civil war and the fall of the Khmer Rouge many years ago, there are still thousands of landmines littering the countryside, and the residue from these mines is preventing the growth of crops. So perhaps by planting these genetically modified grasses in these areas over a number of years, they'll be able to break down those residues and allow that land to be used to produce crops for in the future. Genetic engineering has also been used to increase yields in other ways. For example, rice plants have been modified so that they can be completely covered in water for up to 3 weeks and still produce a good crop. This protects the rice against flooding in regions where rice is grown. For example, here you can see floods in Bangladesh, where the main river flowing through the country has flooded, and those floods will often last for weeks at a time. This, of course, would normally damage and destroy the crop plants and leave the population at risk of starvation and famine. But if we were growing these genetically modified rice plants, they might be able to survive for this period of time, and the local population would still be able to harvest a crop of rice to feed itself and be sustainable. I hope you've enjoyed watching this very short video on genetic engineering. If you have, comment below, let me know what you've learnt, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thank you very much for your time.